we have a problem in the expert coaching business. The ignorance of this problem and the lack of solution to this problem is causing problems for a lot of people in the expert coaching business. It's causing them to lose clients. It's causing them to lose credibility in the marketplace. And it's actually hurting the credibility of people who are paid to be coaches and consultants and those kinds of things. So what is that problem? Basically, that problem goes back to the original early days of the expert coaching business, where somehow it became an adjunct to the psychological counseling, to the therapy business. A lot of it came from the life coaching business, but enough of the background. Basically, it comes down to this. There is a concept in therapy that some therapists are taught that the client is always right. And that if you want to help a client correct their behaviors, you should never actually correct them or their behavior directly. You should work with them to allow them to see the problems in the way that they have acted and the consequence of those actions so that they get it and want to make the change, because it wasn't that you told them that they were wrong. They realized that they were wrong, and it becomes a much more emotional attachment. Well, here's the thing. That works really well with psychology. So if someone is suffering panic attacks or beating people around them or has anger issues and those kinds of things, what we just talked about works incredibly well because it cements their connection between their actions and what they do. But if you're in the business of helping somebody solve real world problems where an expert, and I don't mean to say psychological problems are not real world, but like business kinds of problems, there's a very different way of doing this. So let's say, for example, that you were an IT consultant, a computer consultant, and you just got called in by United Airlines because they had a problem in their programming that every minute that program was not operating correctly, it was costing them $1 million in whatever, book tickets or flights that weren't flying or whatever it was. Would they want you to stand around and spend 30 minutes or an hour or 3 hours or 10 hours helping them to arrive at what the solution is? Or would they want you to just tell them what the problem was and tell them what the solution is? That's what they're paying you for, is to immediately just solve their problem. So in the world of expert coaching or consulting, that is your job. People hire you because you know what they don't, or because you have perspective that they don't, or because you have experience that they don't. They're hiring you for your expertise. That means that if you're going to use the psychological and the therapy practice of trying to get them to realize what their problem is and have that problem solution come from inside of them out to the world, what that does is it costs them tremendous amounts of time. They may actually know what the solution is and you can help them get there, but they're actually paying you to give them that solution quickly and easily. So you actually do them a disservice when you don't just directly help them understand the solution to their problem. When you spend a bunch of time trying to get them to arrive at their own solution, in many cases, you're actually disservicing them. So my recommendation is that you actually challenge them. Challenge their beliefs, their actions, their inactions. Help them recognize that from an outsider who is an expert looking in at their business, this sales page isn't going to work and they need to fix these elements. So think about that for just a minute. If you wanted to use the therapy practice, what you might do is say, this is a pretty good sales page. Put it up there and let's see how it does. And so they put it up there and maybe spend thousands of dollars in ads to drive people to it, or they use up 2/3 of their launch period to drive people to it, and to come back and say, it's not working. And you say, well, perhaps you should think about maybe doing the headline a little differently and talk about this. If you could just tell them right out of the gate, your problem is your headline, fix that. You just potentially save them a ton of time, money, frustration. In other words, in many cases, you know what it takes for them to succeed. And if you decide to use the therapy method of letting them come to that conclusion, you just wasted a ton of time and opportunity for them. So challenge them, correct them from time to time, inform them, teach them something that they don't know, or show them data that they don't have. Now, of course, in this process, please be kind, gentle, diplomatic, wise. And you also need to recognize that there are times, even in the expert coaching space, when you need to use the therapy model to allow them to arrive at their own conclusions. But you need to separate those two and consciously make a decision when you're going to apply different tactics. So you can waste a huge amount of their time that they're probably paying you by the hour to help them to come to the conclusion. It can oftentimes take, let's say you've got a 45-minute coaching call with them, and it's going to take an hour and a half of getting them to come to the conclusion. You just wasted probably a month's worth of coaching when you could have just said, hey, your problem's this, and tell them right out of the gate so you can cut that whole hour and a half and allow them to make progress. Now, if they're doing behavioral things that are causing them to not achieve the results that they want, that's a different story. You can then use a therapy model to help them to get there. So if they're procrastinating because they're afraid or something like that, that's a therapy model. Use the therapy model in those situations. But if the problem is their headline is really bad, or their buy button is too far down the page, or people can't see their buy button, or they've got 3 offers going on the page all at the same time, all those are examples of times when what they really need you to do is to just tell them. Now I'm going to step back here. Caveat, everything I just said is talking about expert coaching, not behavioral coaching. I'm not talking about therapy sessions. They're quite a different animal. But when you're hired to give people answers, please just give them the answers. Give it to them wisely, kindly, diplomatically, but give them the answer so that they are getting the results that they want. That's what they're paying for. That's why they will continue to work with you. People love paying people who make them a whole lot more money than what they paid them. People love paying people to cut years of pain out of a process. People love to pay people when that person can get them to a solution faster than they would ever get there themselves. That's why we hire like an athletic trainer. If you want to lose 20 pounds, you can work really hard at it for 6 months, working out, trying to get there. Or you can walk in and hire an athletic trainer for a couple of $100 and maybe lose it in a month. People love to hire people who help them get to what they want faster, better, easier. And sometimes that goes against the therapy model. Clearly define the two in your life. So what I invite you to do is put in the chat, does what I just talked about apply to you? Because it could be that you are a purely mindset expert. And in that case, you may be wanting to only use a therapy model. But it could be that it does apply to you because many of the expert things that you do apply there. Secondly, Name a time when somebody has used the wrong kind of expert coaching with you, when either you needed a therapy kind of model and they gave you just the answer, or you needed an answer and they gave you a therapy model. How did that affect you? And what do you wish would have come out differently? I'd love to see those answers in the chat. This is Don Crowther saying, just go do this stuff.